It's a good thing. Testing. Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. If you don't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Kay,
Here.
Councilmember Stroman,
Here.
Councilmember Engel,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. So it looks like we have a presentation today for Eduardo Escalante, the newest member of the Reserve Officer group. Chief, you have this?
Yes, sir. So, I'd like to introduce Eduardo Escalante. He's our newest reserve officer. He started on June 22nd of this year, and he just got his uniform, so he hasn't yet worked a shift, but he'll be starting very soon. He's here with his wife, Nevaeh, or his wife, Shasta, his daughter, Nevaeh, and then several other family and friends, and his wife will be doing the pinning on after we do the swearing in. So, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Eduardo Escalante,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and
California
the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and the
California,
Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
and without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter. I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for my family for coming out, and I look forward to serving the people of Escalon.
Officer Escalante, welcome to the team. Look forward to seeing you out there. Anyone else want to say something? Good? Okay. Well, I guess we'll move on to the consent calendar next. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, do we want to pause and let Mr. Escalante and his family?
Yeah, we can. I'm sorry? Four, okay.
I also wanted to pull item number 1.
Okay, so 1 and 4, anything else? And 2?
Two. We already swore the guy
You
in.
said 1. Did you mean 2?
Sorry. Yeah, item 2.
Oh, sorry, 2. 2 and 4. So we'll go ahead and vote the others as a block.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve the consent calendar, items 3 and 5.
Okay? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay. We'll go on to address 4. Let's go ahead and address 2, sorry. 2 first. Councilman Engel.
Yeah, I'm working on putting the agenda back up here. In the minutes, if we could just scroll up to like the first page of the minutes, there was just a few discrepancies in there. I was hoping we could go back and review and kind of confirm. Yeah, it was especially during the interview process. So let me find it here. Yep, next page. It was the next applicant. So we're still on Miss Long. We could go to the next one. Yeah, Miss Willis. So I think in here, I noticed a couple different ones, but this is just the first one. So if we can go back and take a look. Where it talks about my communications, Councilmember Engel expressed appreciation for a long-standing service and asked her the same question previously posed to Ms. Long regarding handling conflicts between local control and state law. But that wasn't my question. So if we could go back and take a look at the video, and there was a couple other references that were similar to that. Just want to make sure that the record reflects correctly.
Okay. Anything else from anyone on that? Okay. Mr. Alves, you wanted to address number 4?
Mayor, council, and staff, just a clarification of number 4. What exactly were we paying $30,000 for this CSG, is it? Yeah. It says here it's going to have a year's contract, not to exceed $30,000. What will they be doing?
Want to address that? Or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The proposal before the council tonight is to retain an on-call code enforcement service. So it's not necessarily a staff member hired by the city of Escalon. It's through CSG. And primarily this position will work on our major corridors, 120 and McHenry, to help economic development. We feel that if we can improve the aesthetics of our major corridors, our ingress and egress points of the city, the high visibility areas, that we can, in one part, improve our economic development chances. So that's the primary service. We do not have code enforcement in a real way in this community. For various reasons, budget cuts over time, political leanings, various reasons. So we do not have a staff member dedicated to code enforcement. So in the times when there are major issues, not proactive issues, but major issues, we want to be able to have that service available. One of the things that comes up frequently is weeds, and we are able to, by sending letters to property owners, to get compliance generally. Sometimes when we can't, when we haven't been as diligent as we'd like to be because of staffing issues, that's another service. So economic development along the corridors, weeds, and then really kind of egregious property, health and safety issue properties is what we would use the $30,000 for, and this is a not to exceed amount. If we get in and we use $10,000, fantastic. We don't have to use anymore. That's the idea behind this proposal.
Where's the funding coming from?
Measure P primarily is where it's coming from.
Measure P, okay. We haven't had the committee selected yet for Measure P, have we?
We have not.
And do we have an idea when that might happen?
I can share with the community that we sought 5 members of the committee. We received 3 applications by the deadline. I've been coordinating with council on next steps, and we'll likely go back out to see if we can seek additional applicants for that committee.
You don't feel 3's enough?
Council direction was at 5. We can have that conversation with the council if they'd like to reduce the number.
Now, you also have hired or going to hire a economic development officer or somebody in that position, yes?
So the position that is vacant right now is development and community service. It's primarily planning, building, engineering, and recreation. with the council's new priority towards economic development, that role will also do some economic development, but it's not a new position
It's
created.
not an independent one, it's accumulated different departments he has to take care of, this individual.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so he will head that committee for economic development?
He or she, yes.
He or she, okay. Well, how long do you think it's going to take before we can get a decision on the Measure P committee?
I believe we will go back out in the coming days, open it up for a couple, 2 to 4 weeks, and then set council interviews. And then once we interview, if there's enough applicants and, all of that, once we interview, then the committee will be formed. So September, October, probably.
Okay. There was one other question, what was it? Let's see. I was just thinking it would be interesting if your committee was already in place and was able to review the funding for Measure P before we start spending money. I just think that'd be a little more appropriate.
Makes sense?
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's, something to think about as council members. If you got 3 people wanting to do it, and that's it, take them. Let's go. And let's get on this thing before we start spending money we don't even know we have, or how much we have.
Yeah.
All right? Have a good day. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on number 4
Yeah.
of staff? So right now, code enforcement, as we all know, is complaint-driven. Would this individual, would it still be handled as complaint-driven, or is this person going to be in Escalon 1 day a week? I mean, what exactly is the plan for this position?
The position as envisioned right now will absolutely be complaint basis only. That is the direction, the common direction of council over the years, absolutely be complaint based only. We envision that this person will be in town maybe 1 day a week, half a day a week, something like that, where they spread their time over the course of the year. If in 1 week or a month there's no activity for them to do, they will not come here. We don't need to spend money or have them here when there are no things for them to do.
So I do think Mr. Alves brought up a good thought with the, not putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. So I don't know if you guys would be up for tabling it and pushing it down the road until we have that,
Well, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect to Mr. Alves and your opinion, I'm kind of looking at this as at a different perspective, and the perspective that I'm looking at it through right now on these, recently we've had a few major code enforcement issues that has taken a lot of public works time, it's taken police department time, it's taken city staff time, and while I understand the concern is this being tied to Measure P, I see that this position actually frees up a lot of staff time that Public Works is doing, that the police department doing, and staff's doing.
Well, I agree. I agree with the premise of what they're wanting to do. I'm just looking at the timing of it. It would make the most sense logically to have your board in place before you're, making that decision. So, although I would tend to vote yes on this myself, I think that we do have to follow a process, is my thought on it.
From our perspective, we're happy to start as the council desires, or not start as the council desires. I think when the committee was formed, there was a sentiment that the committee was not going to be established by the budget that was just adopted, and there was perhaps to be some expenditures. And the committee wasn't necessarily set up to review every expenditure of Measure P, but to elicit ideas through the community on priorities and potential uses of the funds, just by way of background in the approval.
Okay. Any other thoughts up here?
Yeah, I think city manager expressed the thought that I had when we put forth the advisory committee for Measure P, and that does make sense that we're gonna have some time before that's established. And if there's some things that we can handle right now that's going to address money savings through other departments, then I could definitely get on board with that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the idea, of putting the cart before the horse and understand, the sentiments of Mr. Alves 100%. Unfortunately, there are some egregious issues that we have around town as far as code enforcement goes that I would really like us to get moving on sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Several vacant properties, covered in weeds and that sort of thing. So, yeah, in my opinion, this isn't, such a massive amount of money that we should be concerned all the way across the board as far as Measure P goes. And if that's as much as we're using of Measure P funds currently, I really don't see an issue with it. And like the city manager mentioned, the budget has already been adopted. So the recommendations of the Measure P committee really aren't going to make a whole lot of impact until the next fiscal year anyway.
That makes sense.
And I definitely wouldn't want to put off us getting a code enforcement officer moving forward for another 12 months.
Okay. Well, do we want to take this to a vote, or do we take it out to the community first?
Yeah, we should have public comment if there's any additional public comment.
Any public comment besides Mr. Alves?
Cody Fowler, 1550 Judith Way. I don't think we should be bringing on an employee for code enforcement when we have officers sitting here and in the lobby that don't have a contract. Their contract's expired. I think you need to be working on that, focusing on that before you bring some company from Sacramento in here to do code enforcement. That's just ludicrous to me. So,
Just so you're aware, we are working on it.
well, it's expired. It should have been done.
Yeah, I'm just letting
You're
you.
not moving fast enough, Andy.
Okay.
So I'm a no vote for the code enforcement guy.
All right, anyone else? All right, anyone online? All righty then. I will bring it back to the dais and humor of a vote on these or not.
Mr. Mayor, I vote to, or I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar item number 4.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right. So we'll go on to staff communications.
Item number 2 should be voted on.
I'm sorry. Item number 2 on the minutes.
Yeah, how would we do that since there needs to be an amendment?
So we can do it a couple of different ways. If you think there are small-scale changes and staff has direction, you could approve as amended. Or if you feel like another look is needed, we can not approve and we'll bring them back for the next meeting.
I don't think they're major. They're definitely minor. Looks like a potential confusion between the questions that Councilman Stroman asked and that I asked. The references may have just been flip-flopped in there. So if we can address that, I could agree to motioning for approval as amended.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go back and watch the video, make sure we get that right.
I'll fix it tomorrow.
We have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right. We'll go on to staff communications now, I believe.
Start on that
Can I
side.
start? Good evening, everyone, council members. We have a couple things going on. Our year is closing, so fiscal year 24-25 is still in process. We'll have AP items, which are invoices and things that are paying probably through the end of August. Our target is to wrap this up and get it to the auditor in the month of September. That audit that we have currently with them right now, they are working on. There's a set of statements that have to be completed, and they're halfway through that. They've gone through what's considered all of our general fund items, and now they're looking at the enterprise. So they're making some small progress every week. It's not as fast as I would like, and I do keep in contact with them. I'm very hopeful that the next year will go faster. Again, we're still having problems with the previous auditor that we had, and information from that audit is hampering the current one. So maybe by the time we get the past audit done, we'll be ready to, the next day, give them the current year.
You feel it's going to happen in the next month?
I sure hope so. Yeah, that is my goal. I contact them 3 times a week, and then I have a weekly meeting set with them. I've provided them with quite a bit of the detail that they needed and to kind of help answer questions between years and things like that. So it's been quite an arduous process, but I expect it to be much easier for the year that we just ended, because we have worked out quite a lot of problems, but my goodness, is it taking a long time.
We'll keep poking them with a stick. Hopefully
Yeah, that's
we'll get them to
pretty
get it
much the long
done.
and short of it. That's what I have to do. So we do have, you all very nicely adopted our budget that we had presented. And so with that, we put that full package up on the website. There was a Facebook post to announce. It was put on the website last week, but with the holiday, I'm sure no one was interested in looking at the budget. But I did want to point out a couple things. In the current year that we just closed, we did receive some Measure P money. So we got, I think it's one of the first pages, a little over $60,000 in Measure P funds. So we are getting that. It's coming in a separate check. So we are able to identify those funds and the expenses that go along with them, and we're able to provide reporting. So that'll be nice for us. The next reporting that I provide in our next meeting will have end of month for June and our quarter. So unfortunately, the timing isn't quite all that great for us to get it by this first meeting. And what else? We have our new reserve person. And I think staff is just really working diligently to get this year closed, and it's been a nice work in progress.
Any
Is there
questions?
anything that I've forgotten? No? Okay. And do I have any questions?
I have just a favor to ask. So in years past, finance directors put a budget in binder for council members that we can refer back to in previous years. Is that something that we could do with this year's budget?
Sure. We'll get those out.
Any other questions? Chief?
So just a couple recognitions for some of the officers' great work. So on May 16th, Officer Gunter, he took a burglary report at the laundromat where a soda machine was broken into, causing over $3,000 worth of damage for a couple $100 worth of money. There was video obtained, we posted it online, and some people contacted him. An employee of Burger King recognized the subjects as having dined at the restaurant. They didn't know who they were, but they stated they'd be able to recognize them again. We were also contacted by the owner of a Houston laundromat, who the same suspects also burglarized their business. On June 21st, at about 5 a.m., Officer Palomino was working patrol, saw a vehicle with the headlight out, made a traffic stop. They were kind of making some weird statements. It was Saturday morning at 5 a.m. They said they were on their way to traffic court in Modesto. Driver was on probation, did a probation search, and ended up making an arrest for methamphetamine and paraphernalia. He was talking with the case with Officer Gunter. He recognized the description of the suspects in the vehicle as possibly being involved with the burglary at the laundromat a month and a half earlier. Went back and looked at Palomino's body cam and was able to identify the subject, one of the subjects via tattoos and clothing. Went back, did a photo lineup, and was able to positively identify one of the suspects in the laundromat burglary and secured an arrest warrant. They're based out of the Sacramento area, so we have not yet had contact with them again and made the arrest. But he did a very good job with less than 6 months on of cracking that case and following through and getting a warrant.
Well, tell him thank you from us.
He's here.
Right there in the second row.
Appreciate it.
And then,
Want to come up for a sec?
You're matching great tonight too, dude. Love it.
Just want to say thank you for working hard, keeping our community safe. It means a lot.
Absolutely, that's what I signed up for. Perfect community, perfect time to be able to kind of slow things down, look into the case a little bit more, and upon my findings, I was extremely ecstatic.
Well, good work.
Thank you.
And then on June 25th at 3:34 PM, Officer Geck investigated a vehicle burglary over at the waffle factory where over $5,000 worth of items were stolen, including a MacBook and camera equipment. The victim was able to track his stuff out to Woodward Reservoir. He contacted the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department and went out there with them. They located the vehicle, located the property. There was nobody in the vehicle, and there was like a big group of people. Officer Geck was able to interview all the people and got video from Woodward, the entrance of Woodward, and was able to identify the two suspects, made 2 arrests for the felony burglary, and recovered all the people's stolen property.
Awesome. Well, keep up the good work. It's good to see. Any other questions for Chief?
I have something, but kind of indirectly. It's actually for Gunther, Sergeant Vieira, and Fire Department. Could you guys come forward? And the Fire Department. It's law enforcement, I promise, Chief. So I know that you guys worked your tails off Friday and Saturday night, and obviously you're aware of the incident that we had, my neck of the woods. Just want to say thank you. My neighbors, thank you. I thank you. You guys kept us safe. The evacuation was handled very professionally, and you guys really saved what could have resulted in a major catastrophe with your utmost professionalism. So just want to make sure that you guys know, and to the other, if there are any other firefighters on duty, then throughout the city, we really appreciate everything that you guys did to keep us safe during the 4th of July holiday. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Chief?
That's it.
That's it?
I was gonna mention that, but it's already been mentioned.
All right.
Sorry, Chief.
Public Works?
Good evening, council. I think from now on, I think I'd like to start going before chief because he has all of this going on. It's hard to follow up, so I'll start going before chief after this meeting. Just to update you out the wastewater treatment plant, the sludge removal project is going on at Ecker Cold Storage. The bell pepper plant has already started, so we have the 2 of those in conjunction going, which is normal, been going smooth out there. Our Yosemite Waterline Sidewalk Overlay Project is going well. Seems to be keeping up with the customers there. We haven't had as many landscape issues like we did in the past. It's been a good project, a good contractor. First time we've used them, been pleased with them up to this point so far. Again, library project, the inside library has been completed. They are starting the cleaning process and putting back all the shelving and everything this week. The roof is about 90% done. We're still waiting on the top material to get here, but everything else is built up. Again, that project's gone well. We've actually been able to add a few things to do a little thing extras that the girls wanted there at the library. So again, been a good project at the library as well. Excited to say tomorrow our street sweeping from Autry Street Sweeping will actually start in town. Just to remind everybody, Tuesdays and Thursdays are our street sweeping days. Please allow Autry's a good couple times around to kind of get used to it. We're actually going to go with him tomorrow in the next few days just to show him the lay of the town and stuff. But if anybody ever has any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out and we'll get them addressed right away. Also, too, one thing that Public Works is being aware of, PD's helped us made aware of, but we just want everybody else to be aware of in the summer times. There is quite a bit of these electric bikes and electric scooters zipping through everywhere, parking lots and streets. So if everybody could just be mindful, we've had a few close encounters with some of the kids out there having a good time, which we want them to continue to do that, but just have everybody please pay attention to all those little motorized vehicles flying around all the time now. That's it for Public Works, unless you have any questions.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. For the street sweeping, is there going to be a route or like a map so we can?
Yes, there'll be a map, and I'm sure we'll get that posted on the website if we haven't already, for sure.
Okay, appreciate that.
And just, are those similar days to what was previous? I know
Yes,
they were-
ma'am, it is,
okay.
exactly.
Okay, great.
Any other questions up here? City manager, did you have anything before I go to the public?
No further comments.
Any questions for staff? Anyone out there have questions for staff? No? Okay. Online? No? Okay, we'll go to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it's not required. Due to state law, action will not be taken on the item that is not on the agenda. And except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. At this time, does anyone want to come up, matters from the, excuse me, matters presented from the audience? We've got one.
Good evening. Shayla Fowler. I just want to say that Escalon is one of the few towns that still has that small town feeling. I was talking about the town today to somebody at work, and they said it sounded like a Hallmark card or a Hallmark video. And many of the citizens choose to live here because of that. Some of us have been lucky enough to live here for generations. In my case, I'm the 7th generation to be from Escalon. One of the special parts of our town has always been the wonderful officers that serve our police department. And I am proud to say that that includes members of my family. My grandfather was a reserve for many years, and now my husband is actually one of the volunteers. Having the police department that knows the community and those within it is an amazing feeling. These men and women choose to serve and protect our town, and they have become a part of it. You see them at many events, including National Night Out, Park Feet, Farmers Market, and you may even see some of them at the football teams cheering for the home team because they went to school here. How amazing is it to see Facebook posts like the one where Officer Geck was encouraging a young boy to learn to ride his bike, or to be stopped behind one of the patrol vehicles and a child roll down his window to say hi to Officer Harrison and know the officer by name because he's a community resource officer, and they now have interactions with them. I know there are many more amazing stories like this. So now, per the rumors around town, there's been conversations with the sheriff's department. While I have nothing but respect for the sheriff's department, I do not believe that this is a right option for Escalon to contract with them. The officers that we currently have are amazing, and they have chosen to become a part of our community. I would like to take this chance to remind each of you that most, if not all of you, ran your campaigns on the fact that you would stand behind our police department. Our officers are now working without a contract. The last time the contract expired, it took over a year for it to be resolved. That was unacceptable. Now I have to ask, how is it fair that the people who serve and protect our city are once again working without a contract, and now working with the uncertainty as to if the police department will even continue to serve our community? Make the right decision not to turn your back on the department that has served our community for so long. I urge this council to negotiate a fair contract with our officers and not to consider contracting with the sheriff's office. Thanks.
Thank you for your input. Anyone else like to say anything? No? Okay. We'll go to the online. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't see you.
I wanted to come up here and personally thank the City Council for reappointing me to the Planning Commission for another 4 years. Thank you very much.
Anyone else want to? Oh, we got one.
Can I reply back to that real quick? Mr. Castellanos, thank you very much for serving this city for the amount of time that you have. You're very appreciated, sir.
I love this place even though I don't have 7 generations.
Could we get the picture up that shows the city council meeting online?
Oh, it's not on?
Well, it flashes back and forth, but what it is it's a camera back there showing nothing but the backs of the city council and showing nothing but the front of the people.
Oh,
I think
gotcha.
when we have this thing videoed, the object is for the people watching it to see you guys, not any of us back here, and this issue has come up before. What we need to do is from the podium this way. That's the city council meeting. That's what should be viewed, but if you look at it,
It's that camera.
I wish I could pull that up because all kinds of backwards.
He's right, though. It's come up a couple times, so let's see if we can't get it resolved.
So we have,
Right.
we can zoom in a little bit, but this is the camera that we have right now,
Showing the
facing
council.
towards the dais.
Okay.
We have
It's just
another-
not showing on these TVs, I mean.
Yeah, not on
Not on
these.
the
Well, it's flashed a couple times during this meeting. And like I said, all we're seeing is you guys' backs and then mostly the audience. And once again, the point is
Oh, yes.
to come or go online to watch it and watch the audience.
Okay.
You know, we want to see people up there, see if you're awake, interpret body language.
Yeah,
But if
understandable.
you could correct that and if it could be a little bit more permanent, because it does come up, has come up in the past.
So it's
So it
cur-
looks
it's currently up there right now,
Can
right?
I show you what they're seeing online right now? So here's what they see. They're seeing the council. Well, I don't know what's flashing there, but this is live right now. See how I'm standing next
The
to you?
TVs are just for in chambers.
Yeah.
So that's
But
what they're seeing.
They should be seeing that and enlarged. Can you tell me any of those people are, besides your husband?
Well, I obviously know who they are, but I get what you're
Well, I know, I've seen it up on the screen, I've seen it.
So are you saying you feel we need a more detailed camera, is that what you're saying? Or? is
No,
that
it doesn't have
No.
to encompass the entire room. It needs to
Gotcha.
encompass the dais
From here?
facing you
Gotcha.
guys.
Okay.
The camera's back there. We can work on a Zoom maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, we just.
That sounds,
Council, we
Yeah,
can work on the Zoom, so it's a little bit.
that sounds fair enough.
It's been done before.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'm sure you can go
let's see
back
if we
to it.
can't make it happen for the next meeting.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
it's logical. Thank you, Mr. Haskin. Anyone else? We got one more?
I'm Richard Gouveia, 916 California Street. Back on the subject of the police officers, all the rumors going around and stuff of contracting with the sheriff's department. I think that is so absurd. Our officers risk their lives 24/7 to protect us and our community. And for you guys to backstab them by not giving them a decent contract is totally absurd. And if you do that, we're going to stand up and we're going to repeal Measure P, and we'll get rid of all of you.
All right. Anyone else like to say anything? All right. Go to online and bring it back to the dais. There's no public hearing, so we go to administrative matters. Number 6.
Turn it over to Linda.
Number 6 is mine? Okay. Again, good evening, everyone. So we have the resolutions to adopt our various LLMDs, the lighting districts, and we have a presentation that shows some details, and we have a PowerPoint that shows more of an overview. So it's kind of dealer's choice, which you'd like to see first, or?
And while we're pulling that up and the council's deciding, this is an annual two-step process. Every year we have the introduction item, which is today in front of you. We originally heard it back in May, and then June 2nd, we were slated to adopt. We found some inconsistencies amongst the 5 reports. We wanted to go back and clean those up to make sure everyone was on the same page. when we had that sort of false start, we wanted to go back to the first step. So the item before you is the first step. It is kind of an introduction. Council will give us direction to finalize the engineer's report. If there's any comments, questions, those types of things, we can address those. And then slated for the July 21st meeting, we will seek to adopt the reports basically and the assessment levels. So I just want to make clear that this is the first of a two-step process, and the second step will be at the July 21st meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question before we get started. Were all the districts notified of this meeting prior? Did we do a mailer?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any conversation up here?
Do we have to go one by one by one by one by one?
Up to the council, but as a group, since it's a first step, I think we can take them together. The presentation will certainly be together. If there's individual questions about a specific district, of course, you can reference that district and we can answer it related to that district.
Okay.
Are the reports you're referring to the ones that are in the agenda packet? Is that?
We have
you're saying
the,
there are reports in a PowerPoint.
The Harris and Associates reports are in the packet. This particular one is just a talking point. We've updated the actuals for the year. So as of this morning, these are the numbers that we have. So we know we have our funds. There's our fund list there: Sunrise, Bellaterra, Westwood, and the Estates. Sorry, I didn't get the clicker. So as we keep going through here, we can find our next slide. And one more time. This has the proposed budget. We were calling it the new budget. Let everybody move out. So that's kind of the major change throughout this. The dollars stayed the same. All that was changed in the Harris reports were verbiage. So the numbers are going to be the same, except for the fact that I've updated the actuals for the year. We had expected numbers previously. Oh, thank you. You can play with that telephone game. Okay, let me turn this on. Maybe. Oh, sorry, got it on. Hey. Okay. So we'll go back to this first slide. This is the proposed budget. This is with the numbers that Harrison Associates has suggested. So this is with the increase. So that's why this is called proposed, because it would have to be agreed upon, and we are at that first step here. We kind of can see where the maintenance portion is the biggest item. That's the golden area. It's a very small amount of the entire budget. And that's the dollars that are proposed to be collected for future maintenance items. New tax assessment, that's the proposed amount of what the new tax assessments would be, is $187,000. And we can see this is pretty much the slide of contention here, is the amount that the parcels would increase. Bellaterra is the highest increase, followed by Westwood, and then those are very small, the estates also. We have no increase for Sunrise, of course, as that is locked. And these, again, are just the proposed numbers that Harrison Associates has provided. The new thing on this particular slide that's updated is the legal column. We had, as a result of the back and forth with these reports, $14,840 in legal fees related to the LLMDs. The tree, I think, amount went up a little bit, and perhaps the electricity also went up by a few dollars, but that legal is the highest amount that you'll see. And that's included in the detail report that flashed on the screen earlier. We can get to that later on. So year to date, we are at $145,000, and I have the date of 6/30. That is 6/30 at 7/7. So as we discussed earlier, the current year is still ongoing and being processed. Although it ends 6/30, we will continue to process for a few more months.
So Linda, can you please explain what the $14,840 was paid for legal?
Legal costs are $380 an hour. So divide it by 380, and that's the amount of hours that we use for the legal costs for this particular topic.
Okay, I certainly don't want to get into an argument in the middle of your presentation, so I'll reserve my comments till the end of your presentation.
Okay, and this particular legal cost, it was spread among all the different LLMDs. We have detailed invoices too, if you'd like to see those. Those can be provided. What else do we have here?
I think part of that was what kind of legal fees are incurred in this kind of assessment over the year, that it would take that many hours of legal services for this. So
I had those
think
same
that-
questions. So I looked through the invoices meticulously. They are mostly emails back and forth. There are some hours and things for responding to emails, for responding to communication between Harris Associates and staff and council members. And every moment that's used is billed in a 15-minute increment. So every email is probably $100.
And so it's for the purpose of creating this report and assessing the assessment. Is that correct? That's the
legality.
purpose of?
In a nutshell, yes, but it's basically the legality of the changes that were needed to be made for the, I guess that would be the dictionary section of this, or the reference section.
Yeah.
You know, the verbiage that was changed. There was no dollar amounts changed.
So this is, I mean, because of the what has recently happened over the last year with these assessments, this is a larger legal fee? Is that, an assumption, a larger legal fee than we typically see for this report?
Yes, because the legal fees are commonly zero. So this is the first year we've had this, and it is solely because of the back and forth that's been required in order to get this resolved.
Okay, thank you.
You got me started. I'm going to go for it, okay?
Okay.
I'm not going to have a filter. I think that $14,840 for legal fees is garbage. And let me explain why. Because when the original report was presented, it had major inconsistencies in the report. We had a resident stand here in March and say, Harris is hiding, we're changing requirements, specific conditions to the LLD. And we were told by Harris that, oh, well, that was due to recent court cases. And so we pressed on that a little bit further and said, what are the recent court cases? I don't think the residents of the LMD should have to pay $15,000 in legal fees for a piece of garbage report that Harris put before us in the first place. I don't think that $15,000 charge is appropriate.
I would agree with you. It's a rather large amount. I'm constantly scrutinizing.
Was this something we should be disputing then?
No, it's really not disputable. We've sent emails to the lawyer. The lawyer has responded. We've sent reports, asked the lawyer to look them over. The lawyer, 2 or 3 lawyers responded and a paralegal. It just, every time you ask for an additional service, there is a cost.
So Linda, when the decision was made in June, and I'm not putting you on the spot, please don't think I'm putting you on the spot. But when the decision was made in June to postpone that meeting, you and I both had a conversation, and Harris agreed that they would cite recent legal cases. And I read through all of the LLD reports, and that recent case, there are still no references in there. So my point is, the attorney may have charged the city, which in turn affects the LLDs, but I'm thinking Harris should pay for this $15,000 because of the quality of the report that they provided the first time around. That cost should not be borne to the members of the LLDs. No offense, city attorney. It's just,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
why are we asking the folks from the LLDs to pay for it when Harris did a poor job on their initial report?
Is there anything we can hang our hat on in the contract with Harris?
I haven't looked at the contract site.
It might be worth looking at and seeing if, if there's a potential opportunity there to, you know, call them on, you know, poor work.
I'll just offer some thoughts here. We certainly want to get everything right. We never want to spend any more money than we need to, and we can, you know, determine between the consultants, you know, who's responsible for what, absolutely. Periodically, there are questions, and about any number of things that we take on. I would say, by and large, we are in a cleanup period on a number of different things: budgets, audits, districts, transportation funding, all of these things. It is going to take some money to get through these issues. The alternative is we keep maintaining what we've been doing, and it's not right. So, yeah, is 15,000 a lot? Is it more than it should be? We can debate that and decide however we want. There is some work that has gone into these districts, including, prior to the reports being done, who pays for this fence that was knocked down based on a resident complaint. So we had that issue. We've had a number of issues about who maintains, what is in, what is not in. These are the questions that we are trying to get right into perpetuity. If we get them right now, hopefully we can maintain, and they will always be right. There is going to be an upfront cost for some of that work. As Celinda mentioned, we've been very, in my mind, diligent on the costs that go into everything that we do. But we do have to recognize there is a cost. Now, if you want us to look into whether Harris, should pay that or not, we can absolutely.
Well, I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think he's questioning your work.
And I wasn't trying to defend it. I was trying to provide the council background.
Okay.
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may, my comments just now were not directed towards Celinda, nor Jalen, nor the work of city staff, period. Appreciate everything that you guys are doing. My point is that Harris provided a piss poor job on their initial report, which required further clarification, and now you're going back to the residents of the LLDs and saying, oh, we did a piss poor job, so therefore now you have to pay for us to clean it up. That's my point.
Yeah, and I do see your point, Councilmember, I do. It comes down to the fact that we have gone out and sought the service, and the service has a cost.
I understand.
So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck in a hard spot there. We have had these questions, we've gone out to legal to have them answered, and it was due to the LLMDs. So that is the area that gets charged. In the past, this may have gone out to the general fund, and they would have gotten a piece of it based on their expenses, but we know that is capped. So the $92 that they would get charged for one of these in their total expenses for the year would not come close to covering this $14,000 extra cost. So you kind of have to see, do we want to pay this with general fund dollars? Do we want to pay this with the LLMD dollars? It is LLMD related, unfortunately.
Oh, and I understand that, but my point is that even if we paid $15,000, the references that were requested to be added in the report are still not in the report. So what the hell did we get for $15,000? We got an attorney's opinion. That's basically what we got. But the report, in my opinion, is still inaccurate because it doesn't provide the cleanup language that was requested in the first place. And I'll stop to give the rest of the council members a chance to speak.
Pro Tem, you had something?
Yeah. So the legal services were incurred, and so there is a charge. I don't know if I'm comfortable charging the members of the LMD or the LLD because of the mistakes that were made. And I would like to maybe look into a different fund to charge that to. So I'm not prepared to charge the citizens for those legal mishaps that may have happened, and we had to go back and just that extra charge. I'm trying to think of the citizens and what they're getting on their tax roll, and what they're getting on their tax bill. And I don't know if this is something that they should incur directly, if that makes any sense.
Maybe it's worth looking into.
Mr. Mayor, got something too?
Yep.
So I'm not sure where the ambiguity came from because we were all made well aware that this was going to happen and that legal was looking at it. So it shouldn't be a surprise. We were given notice of that. So not sure where that came from. But I have to agree with city manager in the sense that there was a mess in there that needed to be cleaned up and it required legal advice in order to clean that up. I don't think we can bear all of the blame on Harris and Associates. right? I think some of that probably sits on the city or previous portions of the administration that had some misses. And we're now trying to clean that up, and that's a cost that's incurred. It looks like 40-ish hours, right?
Yeah, about that.
Is what it was to look at 5 different LLMDs, or I'm sorry, 4, and then the one BAD, awful, we'll just call that instead of bad. It needed to happen, and please correct me, staff, if I'm wrong, but it seems like this is a true up to get us to where we actually need to be moving forward. And this was a necessary part in order to get there. It wasn't something that we're just, frivolously spending money on to make sure that we were right. We were getting things right. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, and I'll characterize it as a step in the right direction. I don't think we're ever going to get anything perfect. You can't see around every corner. There's going to be things that we need to react to. Much of the time that was spent by legal is looking at noticing. We had several questions about noticing and when it should go out and who should pay for that. And we really got the whole procedural step, the whole procedural process more in tune with perhaps how it should have been done. And again, that comes with a cost. Were mistakes made in the report? Sure. I mean, every consultant, every person makes mistakes periodically. I don't think the characterization that it was a very bad report and things had changed is completely accurate. I do think there were some definitions changed 3 or 4 years ago, and people took notice of that, and that was explained. And we've since gone back and sort of made it to where we think it's mostly understandable to everyone, and that's what we've been trying to do. So, and I have no problem, going after Harris if that's what we want to do. But what I'm trying to say is there's going to be some cleanup in this process, as Councilmember Engel had indicated, and there's going to be some costs associated with that cleanup. And we hope we are moving in the right direction. It's not perfect, it's not final, but we're moving in the right direction.
My only additional thought on that is it looks like it was evenly split between all of the districts. My thought is that it should be percentage proportionate to each one of their individual, budgets. So, the Sunrise, with their total budget being 10,000, you're looking at 29% roughly, and then you're looking at, sub 10 for like Westwood, 6-ish, 7-ish for the others. So I think that it should be percentage appropriate, or that's not the word that I'm looking for.
I had considered that originally.
Okay.
My con to that was that Belterra would bear the brunt of it. And that is probably where a lot of the questions came from. But the questions kind of, and the emails back and forth were for all the different districts based on maybe how long we can amortize the cost of a fence. We had it in the report for 50 years. The legal team found out, oh no, it can only be 30 years. So as we got more into the weeds on these and legal really picked apart the report line by line, it took more and more hours. So as questions were asked, they dug deeper and found more items. And then Harris would go back and make the change. So there's an awful lot of time spent by Harris making changes, which I'm not trying to defend them in any way, but just saying there was a lot of time spent on both sides from all these different vendors. One of the items that I did was to go and research all the legal cases, and quite honestly, many of them pertain to water districts and special use and not special use and all this based on the sale and transportation of water. But those things can be applied to other areas, and I think that's what Harris had done in cleaning up their wording. But the report was still flawed. So
a question
it is what it is.
for you, like I'm trying to discern whether this seems like a logical first step, like a true up, like Councilman Engel was saying, or if we should at least be, giving these guys notice that we're paying attention. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess, because in one statement you're kind of saying that they did screw up, but you feel like the amount of hours is reasonable for the type of issue we're dealing with? Is that kind of where we're at, I guess?
I find the expenses are quite high, in my opinion, but the
Okay.
amount of work that was done, that's completely fine.
Fine,
There
okay.
was that amount of legal work consumed in this task. There was a lot of emails back and forth, there was a lot of time spent, and they detailed their billings very accurately, so I can provide those.
So you don't feel the numbers were fluffed, in other words?
No,
And
and
you-
unfortunately, I didn't find anything where I could say, oh, well, this task that they billed us $600 for was split between enterprise and this. No, they're very detailed in the.
Can we at least ask them to clean up the mess up without incurring more?
I believe, it is my understanding that Harrison Associates has made the corrections to the verbiage. There's been no changes to the dollar amounts, but the
Okay.
verbiage was corrected. And I think we're done at this point.
We are, okay.
That portion of it, I may be
Then what-
misspeaking at this point, but
what are you
it's my
describing?
understanding.
Mr. Mayor, if
That's
I may.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Linda?
Well, I just, real quick, I mean, my argument isn't that we did not incur these charges and the city of Escalon doesn't owe them. I'm more, my understanding would be that this should be paid out of a different fund and not pass through to the citizens through the LLD. And I think that's what I would be interested in, is looking into another fund to pay this out of.
And I am, of course, welcome to, I'm open to any kind of changes that you want to make.
And that's a statement for council and continue to discuss.
Well, it's kind of where I was going. So my thoughts are, if it was previous, some of this was previously on previous staff, right? If there was some stuff that we might have missed, how does the council feel about splitting that cost with them? I think there's some responsibility on all sides, and I think it's an olive branch out to say we recognize our part.
I would agree. I think on some level, there has to be accountability, right? So whether it's splitting it or incurring the lesson learned, so to speak, either way, I'd be on board with that.
So here's my take, and yes, I got a little fired up there a little bit ago. I'm not saying that this is not a valid cost. I was asking the attorney questions related to this, and very, very helpful, very, very responsive. So in no means am I saying that this is the fault of BBK. What I'm saying is that Harris gave us an incomplete report. And we asked for updated information, an updated engineer's report. And it's still an incomplete report. Yes, there's cleanup, and there will be cleanup probably for the next 2 or 3 years. But my question is, if Harris was presenting this report as our consultant, don't they have their own legal? Why are we bearing this cost? Why is the city bearing this cost and not Harris when we pay Harris to present a fully vetted engineer's report in the first place? This shouldn't be a City of Escalon charge. This should not be an LLD cost. This is all on Harris, in my opinion. I'm not saying that this cost is not reasonable. I get it. I mean, attorneys are expensive.
Councilman Kay, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just trying to, get a word in here. Everybody's got something to say tonight. I agree with you, but I disagree with you, Sean. I think that, yes, Harris, if they've made a mistake, that we should, definitely have a discussion with them and, ask them about, bearing some of this load, if not all of it. However, you're in business. You work on a project. You have a subcontractor do something for you. They do subpar work. You pass it off to a customer. You're still liable for being the middleman, right?
Yep.
So we still have a responsibility as a city, being that middleman between Harris and the LLDs, to double check, make sure things are correct, and go back and review. And there was definitely quite a bit of questions about the things that were changed a few years ago, and there were questions that were brought up. Jeremy, as far as splitting it by percentage, I disagree with that idea. Same kind of circumstance, if the 5 of us are, in some kind of legal issue together, we're going to split that 5 ways. It's not going to matter who has the bigger bank account or spending. Now, when you get to who owes what, I don't think that should there be no recourse for Harrison Associates, I don't think we should be even discussing moving this into another fund. This is LLD related. It is an LLD fee. There is no reason that every other taxpayer in the city of Escalon, this isn't our bank account. It's not, Escalon City Council's bank account. It's the taxpayer's bank account that we work out of. And if every taxpayer in this city is now getting the cost of an LLD when they don't live in it and get the benefit of the LLD, that defeats the point of having an LLD, whether it's a legal cost or not. Those are kind of my thoughts, on the situation. If possible, yes, I definitely think the Harrison Associates, should, have a little bit of owning up for the mistakes that we had to double check on them. But at the same time, I think that it's also shrewd of us to make sure that we are covering ourselves, and that cost is something that should be borne, unfortunately, directly on the LLD. And it's not that I have anything against any of the residents, in these areas, but they are the ones that live in the LLD, not every resident in the city of Escalon. So it's unfair for us to say, oh, let's move it to another fund, and legally, I don't even know that that's legal for us to do. Because again, you're taking a cost that is directly associated with LLDs and spreading it out throughout the entire city. That does not work in my mind.
Makes sense.
I think unfortunately, I think you're right. It's a tough pill to swallow, but
yep.
The more I chew it over, I think you're probably right. I didn't even think about that, but it makes sense.
Can we continue with the presentation?
Sure thing.
Please.
It's just going to get worse. No, just kidding. But I did not want to hide the fact that part of the expenses that are over what we had originally anticipated is a new charge that we did not know about.
Right.
So it's not being hidden. We talked about it, I think, at length. So we're going through here. We've got our assessments, the interest that we expect, that we have earned already, and the cash that they have on hand. As you can kind of see, Sunrise right now only has $1,366 worth of cash. So the general fund is going to be picking up any of those extra legal fees as it is. They just don't have enough money to pay for it. Everybody else is quite fine. What do we have here? Those are the current tax assessments, okay? This is what we have right now. This is without any increases, and the prior slide was with. The proposed tax assessment, we were calling it new before, is $187,553. It's an increase of $15,645. So now we can go into each one of these. Sunrise, as we know, is kind of locked. Their unfunded expenses are about $3,731. They just don't have anything left. The fund balance in these particular LLMDs are going to equal their cash in most cases because they don't have any other assets. And that's what we've talked at length before about the fund balance, including cash. So we can kind of look at that fund balance and see there's just not a whole lot left there.
And just to reset, this is the one of the 5 districts that does not have an annual inflator. So this year and in 20 years, that assessment level will be the same unless there's further action.
So if we kind of apply that same principle here to Bellaterra, we can see that they've got an extra $8,300 in their coffers this year, but the replacement budget that we're asking for to replace equipment later on down the road is $11,000. So they're actually short a little bit from target. They also only have $21,000. They should have been banking this money for years. There should be $100,000 plus in there, but there's not. So if a wall or a large fence or something major has to be replaced, they have a little less than $21,000 to do it with.
And I'll just take a few minutes on this one to kind of walk through that a little bit. There are costs we have, sort of operational costs, every single year. It's your electricity, it's your water, it's your cost to mow the lawns and all of that. And then typically, and in this case, we amortize all the other equipment, long-term maintenance, things, right, walls, fences within that district. And so each one of those will have an estimated shelf life. A fence may be 20 years. So we take the cost of that fence, we divide it by 20, and we charge an additional portion each year so that when that fence goes down, we've collected enough money over that 20 years to replace the fence. And so we have the annual, kind of operational costs. Those increase every year. Water goes up, electricity goes up, labor goes up. And then we amortize the kind of longer term things. And what we found for various reasons is we weren't, collecting enough to cover all of the long-term items. And so if the council wants to, we want to correct that, that issue. Now, of course, we can do any number of things that the council wants, even lowering the assessment proposed, if that's, what the council so wants. And any delta, any gap between what we collect and what we spend would come from the general fund.
All right, so since we're talking about Bellaterra, I'll bring up some concerns regarding the capital replacement costs of Bellaterra. Mind you, these comments are pretty across the board to all the LMDs. So at one of the capital replacement costs that we noted here is a masonry wall. I'm in construction, and I will say that most of the time when you build a masonry wall, you don't need to replace it. And when you do need to replace it, it's due to a vehicle accident or something running into it. So therefore, does the insurance, or if it's an uninsured motorist, that's my concern regarding charging for a masonry wall. The wood fence between Brennan and Alberto Lane. So in the research that I've done, one property owner got the fence replaced on the LMD back, on the rest of the LMD residents back, and the other one was a split cost, 50-50. My suggestion is, and in reading the research or the report, it sounds like this wood fence cost is the entire wood fence cost, but in Escalon, under municipal code, we're required to have good neighbor fences. So if we're required to have good neighbor fences, shouldn't the good neighbor that is facing the LMD property pay their fair share instead of taking this cost and replacing the entire fence?
Legal question.
Yeah, well, start the, I would say that's a policy level decision.
Okay.
There are certainly arguments to be made either way there. Typically, districts are set up with the infrastructure, the improvements that were made at time of construction of the subdivision. That is what's maintained. And that property happens to be adjacent to a common facility, in this case, a fence. If the fence goes down because it's old, because, the district is overwatered, or, any number of things, an earthquake, right? That gets replaced through the district. Again, policy level decision. If we want to split 50-50, those are things that, the council can certainly do.
Not saying that the LMD, what I'm trying to say is the LMD as a whole should only be paying 50% of that replacement cost, because technically the adjacent property owner also gets the benefit of a wood fence, of a brand new wood fence. Similarly to that, the masonry walls. We have masonry walls surrounding some of these LMDs. The property owners that live adjacent to a masonry wall, they're getting the benefit of having a masonry wall as opposed to a wood fence. I mean, I'm not splitting hairs here, but I think there needs to be some fairness across the board when it comes to fences and walls.
You're asking for consistency.
Correct.
Well, that's part of the LMD, though. That's the benefit of living in that, is that you have those things taken care of. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the fence that we replaced, we were the neighbor. Was that correct? So it wasn't that there was another resident, it was public property which would mean that the LMD should foot the bill because it's part of the LMD. It wasn't-
What I'm saying, Councilmember Engel, is the two fences that were replaced on Alberto Lane, one on the south side, the LMD, well, actually, because the LMD didn't have the full money, the city bore the cost of replacing the entire fence. Mind you, it was a majorly upgraded fence to the residents of the LMD. And then the fence on the north side, when that fence needed to be replaced, that resident on the north side only got paid, he paid 50% and the LMD paid 50%. All I'm saying is that moving forward, we should be consistent. 50% charged to the LMD, 50% charged to that property owner.
I'm still missing it. Then what's the benefit of the LMD? Because the LMD is supposed to cover those things.
Okay. I guess I'm not explaining it clearly.
Talking about, you're saying our ordinance says that we're supposed to be doing, there's supposed to be a cost sharing.
No,
Is that what you're
what
saying?
I'm saying is that in our municipal code, we require good neighbor fences for residential properties. So can everybody see on this map the purple line coming perpendicular off of Brennan? So the property on the north side, he needed that because of, for whatever reason, the wood fence on the north property needed to be replaced. This property belongs to Mr. Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell replaced the fence. He came before council, before we were on council, and said, this fence needs to be replaced. Can the LMD pay 50%? Because the south side of this fence is on the LMD property. That makes sense to me. Now, the property that's on the south side of the purple line, that fence needed to be replaced. That homeowner, I can't remember his name, that homeowner needed the fence replaced and got a majorly upgraded fence. I mean, I invite you all to walk Alberto Lane tomorrow morning and look at the differences between the two fences, because this gentleman got a majorly upgraded wood fence, and now the rest of the LMD is having to bear the cost, but he gets the benefit because now he has a beautiful wood fence in his backyard. That's my point, is that if we're doing good neighbor fences, we should just split it 50-50.
I'm still a little bit confused. Justin, can you shed light on that for me?
Well, just one little correct, I mean, as far as who paid for what, I wouldn't be comfortable going into the details. One thing that I did hear that was inaccurate was the difference on the two fences, on one nicer than the other. Councilmember Strom is exactly right. We were approached that he wanted an upgraded fence, and he paid for the upgraded portion of the fencing. LMD, LLD, or city was not responsible for that in the quote, so that was taken care of the homeowner.
So the LMD took care of their part, the homeowner wanted extra, he paid out of his pocket. So essentially, the LMD covered their expense responsibility, just like the north side?
Yes, sir.
Well, it sounds like on the north side, if you're correct, that Mr. Russell paid 50% of it, it sounds like, but really, he shouldn't have paid that 50% to me. When you walk through that, that's an entryway into this, LLD. That is, it's a feature of the LLD, right?
But Mr. Russell is getting the benefit of it. That's my point.
Well, everybody in the community gets the benefit of it. I've walked through there 150 times, I'm sure, out walking my dogs. But that's a feature just like the masonry wall. And as you stated, the homeowners with the masonry wall in their backyard, you're right, they get a great benefit from it, and it's covered by the rest of the LLD. However, that's something that when they purchase the house, I guess everyone when they purchase the house in there, it's kind of what everybody signed up for. So, as far as masonry wall being deducted by that becoming a good neighbor fence, well, that's a lot more than a good neighbor fence. It's a sound wall.
Correct.
That's that's kind of a bridge too far, I guess, is kind of the way that I feel about that. But as far as the two fences on the walkway, I feel like that's something that should be 100% of the LLD's cost because it is a feature of it, just like an entrance sign to a specific part of town, you know, that sort of thing. I just view that one specifically as being that kind of feature.
Okay.
So I would think that if the walkway did not exist, it would be between the two neighbors, 50-50. Because the walkway does exist, it's still 50-50, just not between the new neighbors. It's between the city and each neighbor. So either way, it's a 50-50 split. That's kind of my understanding.
And that's what I'm trying to say is that, and I think Mayor Pro Tem and I think it should be 50-50. Mr. K thinks because, and maybe Councilmember Engel, because it's specifically a benefit to the LMD, then the LMD should bear the full burden of the replacement of that fence. I'm not speaking for you.
No, that's actually what I stated, is that I think that is actually a feature of this, you know, subdivision that has always been there, you know, not necessarily, you know, and yeah, it's, you know, it's somebody's yard, you know, obviously on both sides of it, it's somebody's yard, but it's also a walkway that, you know, there's double the fence there as well, you know, it's not just one side. You know, that was very much a feature of the LLD when it was built. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that, you know, that's a decision for, you know, all five of us to make whether or not, you know, we think that should be a 50-50 split or not. I completely understand the idea of the good neighbor fence concept and all of that. Just in that specific area, it seems like that's kind of a feature of the LLD.
Well, maybe we should visit that in the future. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
Maybe we should revisit that then in the future, so we have a concrete answer moving forward. And we can allow them to finish their presentation.
You want to give it a fourth go?
No, I think that would be a great idea if we would provide staff with some direction on how you'd like to see this happen in the future. It is my recollection that those were the dollar amounts requested by the residents. And for what purpose, I don't know. But I can definitely supply you with the paperwork so you can make your own assessment of that. So we're going on to the next one. This slide shows some expenses for Bellaterra. Let's see, just give me, there we go. So this is updated with 2025's numbers as of 6:30, as of this morning, 7/7. So we can see that they're pretty much have stayed the same. They're 49% of their park maintenance and 36% of their expenses go for their water charges. So it's just a very expense-heavy fund that we have here with Bellaterra, and I wanted to make sure that we had all those updated before tonight's meeting so people could see exactly what has been spent. That grand total of $358 is over several years, and we can kind of use that for comparison. The prior year, we had a few thousand more spent, and we can go all the way back to 2020 when there was, you know, $20,000 less spent. So the costs have increased steadily over the years, through no fault of the residents, of course, but it's just costs are higher. We're on to Westwood. Their increase requested was relatively small in comparison. We have gained the same information, the assessments, the expenses. They have a nice surplus, and so they have all of their future maintenance costs that we have anticipated for the year have been met. There, of course, could be a little bit more reserve money in there, but they've met their year. The estates, LLMD, they have a little bit of unfunded maintenance for the year, short $769, not a big deal. We're asking for a $14 increase, nominal either way. 224, the bad. That one actually has a small decrease. They have annually enough money in there, even though their unfunded maintenance for the year is a negative amount. So I think that has to do a lot with the unanticipated legal fees. Because that $3,400, the $2,900 something would have completely taken out that $2,600. So that's one-time cost, a one-time legal fee is going to sit with us for a while. It's going to be a blip in this year. It's just going to show higher expenses, and so I'll probably put an asterisk by there so that we don't continually have to revisit that question as to why it's so much higher. I think that's what we have for this one. Yes. Now, Michelle has another report that has all the details. If you'd like to see any particular item or walk through it, I'm happy to do that as well, or questions.
Any questions up here before we take it to the audience?
One last one.
Okay.
The chain link fence between Shadowwood Park and the orchard, if that fence comes down because of Murphy Ranch going forward, are we going to refund all those costs back to the LMD and the residents?
The cost of the chain link fence?
Yes.
Currently, there's not enough money in that particular fund to refund anything because there's nothing being collected for it.
I understand.
There's no way to fix it for 300.
Well, no, but what I'm saying though is if we charge 2 years of the LMD costs at $650, while the $650 is peanuts, would we that fence, if you look at the plan for Murphy Ranch, that fence is scheduled to come down because the park's supposed to be extended out. Would we refund those fees back to the residents of the LMD? Because there's no reason to bear the cost of the chain link fence anymore if it no longer exists.
It's a good call out. We could strike that portion of it.
Remove it definitely from the Harris and Associates report. We could remove it. But currently, there are no dollars set aside for that chain link fence to be repaired. There were several years where no collections on assessments were made. And I think in those years, that decision, any backup monies that this particular LLMD would have had at this point in time.
Okay.
So this particular slide is a summary, and it will show you a couple prior years, the current budget that we have proposed, that's in the orange. This is based on actual. So the Harris report is higher than what I have in the orange areas, but we can use it as a comparative number to say, yes, their number is close. And I think I'm underestimating what the expenses would be because this is not my expertise. But I can go to the Home Depot website and tell you that you cannot replace that wooden fence for what we have selected here. So there's some magic in their math that is not really going to meet up to my actuals. But I can tell you what they've spent, what their budget is, and what I think they need. And I can look at the Harris report and say, yep, theirs is a little bit higher, so great, they're going to have a little bit more money sitting waiting for these big expenses. And so this one has quite a lot on it. If you wanted to know the electricity charges, their landscaping, it was in prior slides, but we can go a little bit deeper. Let's see, so these for each one, we've got for Sunrise, this is the Harris alongside of what our actuals are. And this gets really in the weeds. So does anyone have any questions or want to skim past some of these? Okay.
I don't. Does anyone else? Okay.
So this particular packet I can have available online for us to look at as the reference materials for this particular topic. And let's see if I can get this out here. This also includes the details for each fund. So you can see what we've done for the past couple years, current year, and where we're at right now. Off to the side, we have the orange estimated. We can see what they're short. This has all been explained in that previous PowerPoint. Just this is all the detail. And so we go through, we can see each cost that's been posted here. There'll be a page for each fund. So you can actually go through every single billing. And if you want one pulled, of course, we can pull it and go through it. The $10 PG&E bill is not that exciting, but. So are there any questions?
I don't have any questions before we go to public.
And I will make this available on the LLMD folder on our website that has all these different reports that we've used for these different topics.
Yeah, any questions from the public?
I don't mean to belabor the point here, but I think Councilman Stroman had an excellent point. When Harris provides an inadequate report, they're responsible for it. I spent years paying for E&O insurance, which is errors and omission, and anybody providing those kind of services should have it. It doesn't really make any difference if they have it or not. The whole point is, like Councilman Stroman said, is they didn't provide a professional report because it had errors. It's on them.
Thank you.
On that first screen they had up there, it said $145,037 we paid out so far in the first 6 months. and the total expected to pay was 178,744. So did we prepay some of the expenses, or what?
Those numbers are for the entire year.
So if we spent 145 in the first 6 months, you're only predicting that we're going to spend 32 on the last 6 months?
The $145,000 listed on the report is for an entire fiscal year, which includes 12 months from July of 2024 through June of 2025.
You know where you might be,
I'm thinking that was probably the PowerPoint,
I'm sorry?
the pinkish kind of page. We can go back to it.
Yeah, it was the one that had all the lawn and all that.
We'll get it cleared up for you. Hold on one.
Yeah.
I think that that's just a misunderstanding, and because it's July, you think we're only 6 months.
Well, if it started July of last year until June 30th of this year,
The year's over.
that's fine.
It's our fiscal year.
Then I can understand.
Yeah,
So the last 32,000 be for the last 6 months of this year, and then it'll be.
That's what you were missing there, is fiscal year is over, and that's, she has the next month or two that she'll have some things trickle in that will make up the the balance of that, for my understanding.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, that's not for 6 months, that's for the fiscal year so far.
okay. It just
That's
said
my type year to
for
date,
fiscal,
sorry.
oh, excuse me.
There we
Okay.
Fiscal year 25, 26, so I thought it was,
So is that
so far this year. I said, well, did we prepay or what?
Yeah, so
Entire
the
year.
178 is the forecast that Harris and Associates has provided us for the upcoming budget that we're actually living into today, because it's July. But our numbers on this slide are showing us the 145,000 for the year that just ended, kind of alongside of this number of our 178. So we can see that our expenses are expected to increase.
Does that answer your question?
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay. And anything else? Anyone else? No? Online? All right, we'll bring it back to humor vote on this, right?
I have one question. I'm looking at the increases of the last several years to the LLMDs and what they look like, and what they look like historically. And most have increased quite a bit since, the 2020 and all of that. I'm looking at Westwood, though, and over the last 3 years, they've doubled. Is there a reason or something that has happened in that particular community where that increase has gone up so much over the last 3 years?
I've seen it
100% increase.
across the board. It has been the lawn care and the water. Like, electricity has been really not that much at all after the new lights were put in. I think those are relatively inexpensive. They're just dollars per light. But the lawn care costs and the water costs have gone up quite a bit.
And one of the biggest reasons in Westwoods, if council members in the last 2 to 3 years, we've had some pretty big 3 to 4 inch irrigation leaks inside Swanson Park, which is in Westwood. We think that we're down to only one valve cluster that needs to be repaired, but is in good repair now. So that's really where those high expenses came. We had a couple $2,000 and $3,000 bills on getting that irrigation repaired at a couple different times in about a 3-year span.
Okay. Okay, and then I'd just like to add, Counselor Stroman mentioned about the masonry wall. I'm hard to be convinced that it has a 50-year life, that we're going to have to entirely tear down a masonry wall and replace a masonry wall in 30 years in each of these communities that are now 50 years old. I'm hard pressed to believe that. I mean, looking at other masonry walls that are now 50 years old, they are not prepared to be torn down and then rebuilt because they're in such bad repair. And so that's where I'm at on what these costs are supposed to be gathered for, and collected for those purposes. So I'm having a really hard time really believing that that's the truth, what's actually going to happen and what we're collecting money from the people right now for.
I had a similar question for Harris, because I'm like, okay, I've put in fences in my own homes. This is not going to cover it. What qualifier are you using for this? And what was explained to me is that the monies collected are for maintenance for the most part, because we're not collecting enough to actually tear it all down and replace it. This is for maintenance of items. Okay, well, that makes more sense then. You can probably maintain a fence, replacing different pieces, because except for a wood fence, I think that's a different story. But the masonry fence was like, how can you replace that for the small amount that they have listed? And that explanation sounded reasonable to me, that they are collecting this maintenance.
What kind of maintenance would have to be done? I mean, you're not going to come back and redo all the masonry joints. You're not going to, I mean, you're not going, there may be some ivy growing on it, but you're going to. I mean,
I don't know. They didn't qualify what type of maintenance, just maintenance to the walls and the structures that are.
I think this is very good conversation. I do think in some ways we're getting very deep into the details of each district. Districts, like HOAs, like any number of things, are established to maintain the quality that was originally established at formation. So grass, trees, fences, all of that is supposed to be maintained in the long run. We may have a difference of opinion on what a 30-year wall looks like, a 40-year wall, a 50-year wall. We drive by many neighborhoods that have old walls, and whether they're falling down or they just look tired, old, dingy, there is a certain niceness that is, I think, the way these are established to be maintained in these districts. And, we can scoff at that, or we can have different opinions, but that's how that's why these were to be established. And so what we're trying to get to council, primarily from the strategic plan, is fiscal stability. The areas without districts have no revenue source outside of the general fund to maintain parks, sidewalks, trees, all of these things. It's the general fund. And you've seen in, particularly larger communities, but areas that just go into a state of disrepair because there's no ongoing revenue source. And so there's this balance between charging the residents for that aesthetic quality of their district versus not overburdening them. And as time flows, we will all have a difference of opinion. When your assessment is high and everything's relatively new, you may say, well, why do we need it? When everything, like Dinosaur Park, for instance, is in a state of, in parts of it, state of disrepair, then the question becomes to council and the community, why is there no money for these parks? And so this is the balance, this is the policy balance that the council has to now wrestle with. From a fiscal stability standpoint, staff is recommending that we have an appropriate assessment level to cover all of these issues. If the council chooses that that is appropriate, then we will on the 21st move forward with that. If you say, well, we should amortize walls over 100 years, or we should have 50-50 neighbor fences, or we should go to mowing once a month instead of once a week, all of those things can be accomplished. We'll need direction from council, and then we can adjust accordingly.
So just in response, I do believe we should probably be, for playgrounds and such, when I'm looking at this report, I'm on page 354 of the entire package here. You can't see the actual 22. And the playground equipment and amenities does say that this will be a $37,000 replacement cost, $37,454. But then you'll look down at the masonry wall at Wood Park and says masonry wall funds collected on an annual basis for the eventual replacement of this masonry wall. And so that is what this larger, in my opinion, number is for these assessments, is they are collecting money that will add the estimated replacement cost of $113,000 for the masonry wall that whether or not you believe that's going to be needed to knock down or replaced for $113,000. And you can go through to the different reports there on the next page, the one along Brennan, the funds collected, will eventually replacement of this masonry wall, and you'll see that that's an estimated $319,454 $524. I don't think we need to be charging citizens up until then and putting it in an account that we are going to knock down this masonry wall and build a brand new one for $319,000. I just don't foresee that is what we are going to do in 2054. And so I have a hard time, and I don't know if, you know, I would, in my opinion, I'd like to see it reassessed, and I'm not for collecting monies for the total replacement on all the masonry walls after their 50-year life.
I completely disagree with your statement. That's probably going to be closer to $1 million by the time we get to 2054, and it's still going to be ill-equipped. Any structure lasting 40 or 50 years has reached its lifespan, whether it's a matter of settling foundation, deterioration from anything that oxidizes like air, water, or sun, is going to leave that fence at some point in a state of needing to be replaced. It is not a permanent fixture. I mean, no structure is permanent, right? At some point, it's gonna have to be done, and it's gonna be better to have money in that account to pay for it than it is to be like, oh, we need $1 million, or you just don't have a fence anymore.
Very well. I mean, you can look at structures that are lasting hundreds of years in Europe that are masonry. I mean, it just is what you're.
That's not America. Look at our streets.
No, I know, but we're also built of wood instead of masonry. Like, I mean, it's just what you're comparing.
And keep in mind this, folks, on both sides of the argument, okay? If let's just say the masonry wall goes away and the wood fence goes away, and something were to happen to the masonry wall or the wood fence, by law, that would trigger a 218 vote within the LMD, where then the next year the city would come back and say, hey, your fence looks like crap. We need to replace it. What do you think? And then the residents of the LMD can decide if they want the masonry wall replaced. What happens if they say, we don't want a masonry wall, we want a metal wall, or we want a wood wall? I mean, we're making decisions for the next 20 or 50 years, 25 years, that in reality, is it ever going to be needed? Who knows? I don't know. But I think that I am in full agreement with the Mayor Pro Tem that, I mean, we're basically building up a bank account on the residents of the LMD's backs for a whole bunch of what ifs. And there's no guarantee that that cost is ever going to be needed.
My understanding is that it plateau, like you hit, was it 30,000? There's an amount in that it doesn't just keep going, right? In other words, you're taking in funds and you're maintaining a certain balance. You're not just collecting.
That's not my expectation. No, if we were to collect and have additional monies each year, say we had an additional $10,000 each year, it would sit in a fund and we would let that grow in interest, and then as a large expense came up, we'd use that money to pay for it. I see your point though, say we never did anything, we just had all this money sitting there. In the past, what has happened is we allowed residents not to pay any assessments for several years and ate away at that. So I think there's a vehicle in place
to kind of give them almost like a credit back. Okay.
I would just like to make one comment through all these discussions for council to keep in mind. Through the budget, you'll see the prices of maintenance that's gone through, and one of the prices you'll see for trees is small. And the reason for that is because up to this point, Public Works has been able to take care of a certain amount of trees because of the age of the trees. But please keep in mind, at least two of these districts, no matter what, the tree rate will increase dramatically.
Yes.
Because contractors have to come in, they're gonna have to come out and do a thin out. So I just want council to be aware of that. It's been handled a lot more in-house up to this point, but that is one line item that will dramatically increase, and it needs to increase. So just please be mindful of that when you're looking through this report and making decisions.
And I recognize that. I mean, you guys have done everything you could when the trees are smaller, but through the course of the last 15 years and the trees are growing, it's more difficult for Public Works.
So do we want to humor this initial proceeding? This is an initial proceeding, right? Or does anyone else have anything else they want to add?
Well, I mean, I think that I would be willing to make a motion, but I would really like to have Harris come to the meeting and explain some of this. And not necessarily Rick from Harris, but more so the engineer that wrote the report. Because I have many, many questions, and I'm not expecting staff to be able to answer those questions. I appreciate the hard work that staff prepared, but.
Does anyone have an objection to that, or do you feel comfortable just, making a motion? We'll have Harris come in and answer questions.
I think staff answered that question, and I'm ready to make a recommendation to adopt if that's.
We have to make a motion to open the public hearing, which then that would happen on the 21st. So we're not going to adopt this tonight. The public hearing happens on the 21st.
This is just the initial step. I'm fine with that if there's consensus. I don't see a problem with it. It's more clarity, the better.
So I'll just remind everyone.
Yeah.
Commonly, we will have difference of opinions on what should be
Well,
provided
I'm just
and what
saying.
shouldn't be. So if there's, and it's a vote, right? It'll be whatever the split is. If there's a split, so we will, I'm writing some notes down, before the 21st, if there are questions, share them with us. We can do everything we can to have those answered, so we're not, kind of spinning wheels at a public hearing. We will work with legal and the consultant to get those questions answered, so everyone is on the same page and feels comfortable. And then it just may be that we have difference of opinions, including walls, not including walls. Having walls be funded through the general fund, not through the general fund. Not collecting an excess of money and going to a Prop 218. I mean, these are all policy level decisions that can be had, and they should be discussed.
Is there I know that we were just trying to get this done, but is there a deadline as to when this has to be approved by?
I don't think the characterization is correct that we're just trying to get this done. It does have to get on the tax roll, and it has to be to the county by August something. So the 21st is a good meeting to have that discussion and get it to.
Let's, someone want to humor a motion on this so we can, battle it out later? Because we're going to have a public hearing on it anyways.
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the public hearing on the 21st.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. 3-2. So we'll go on to number 11.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This item is a continuation of an item that was heard at the last meeting. Originally, this item came before the council as a council member request in March. And it largely stemmed from the recent Fire 2+2 committee that we have established and started to hold meetings on. From March till about May, June, staff prepared a policy based on council direction. And that direction was to consider a fee waiver or reduction policy for our government partners. And the justification that was established in that policy is we all provide services to the residents that are taxpayers. And so if we're trading funds, there's maybe a certain benefit to waiving or reducing fees for each other's services, as we do in a partnership. So at the last meeting, as I mentioned, June 16th, the council considered and provided further direction to staff on this item. And so we do have a version in the staff report, which is reactive to that council direction. In summary, it basically changes three things. It requires the body, the agency, the government to request of city staff prior to paying the fee for service. And when it gets to staff, staff will bring it up to council for your deliberation and consideration. The second item is to allow not only a full waiver, but a reduction. And it caps, although not specified, it caps the total waived fee. So we don't have, some sort of tens of thousands of dollar fee waiver, for instance. And then the other item it includes is including public safety entities, for example, and specifically Escalon Community Ambulance, in addition to the two that are originally included, Escalon Unified School District and Escalon Fire District. So the staff report and the policy has been updated per that direction and ready for any questions the council may have.
I think it's important that our community is working together in a cohesive way, and I think this drives the bus towards that direction. So I personally like it. I don't know if anyone else has any comments or questions up to the dais. So I'll take it out to the public then. Does the public have anything? Anything online? Okay, we'll bring it back. Does anyone want to say anything or humor a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve. Can we go to the top, please? Move to approve Resolution XX25, adopting a user fee waiver policy to waive certain user fees imposed upon local government agencies as well as public service agencies, and authorizing the city manager to approve such waivers and approving certain other related actions.
I'll second that.
Wait, sorry, shouldn't that be amended? Wasn't that to authorizing it to come back to council, not to the city manager?
City manager can only approve after council has approved.
Okay. So we're amending that, right?
It's amended already. It's just
Okay.
a procedural step that the city manager approves, but only after receiving approval from the city council. It's in there.
And you wanted a second?
And I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And no nays. Okay. So we'll go on to council communications. Councilman Kay.
Appreciate the conversations tonight. I think that all of us with our varying opinions are doing a great job of deliberating from every side of the fence, so to speak. Just appreciate that we're able to do it as pleasantly as we have. Aside from that, I hope that everyone have a wonderful Independence Day, and that's about all I have to say tonight.
Councilman Engel.
I have no comments this evening.
Councilman Stroman.
Of course. I'll try to make it brief. Similar to what Councilmember Kay said, really appreciate the back and forth discussion, the respectful discussion. We all have different opinions, but the important thing is that we listen and consider the other side before making a decision. So appreciate the back and forth and the deliberation. I just would like to address an item that was discussed previously under public comment regarding the supporting the police department. And obviously we cannot get into specifics, but I highly recommend every resident out there, despite what you read on social media, take the time, put a little bit of energy, and pick up the phone. You can call any 5 of us. You can send us an email. I will say that I have received some emails from folks because at the end of the day, we are here, we represent you And quite frankly, there is a treasure trove of misinformation on social media that if you want to know the truth within reason, take the time to contact an individual council member, meet for coffee, what have you. In other words, don't read everything that you're reading. Don't believe everything that you're reading on social media, because there's a good chance it might not be true. We are all human, and we all listen, and our community is important to us. I am speaking for all 5 of us by saying that we are hearing you and we are available. So we all have full-time jobs, but if time permits, we'll listen. So I appreciate the feedback. Mr. Castellanos, welcome back to the Planning Commission. It's good to have you back. And appreciate everybody's input tonight, and just want to reiterate my earlier thanks to the fire department and to Officer Gunther, Sergeant Vieira, and Chief for your hard work during the 4th of July. Very much appreciated. That's all I have.
Okay, Pro Tem?
Sure. Just beating a dead horse real quick, because I remembered a point that I could have made. I live in a house that's about 80 years old in lovely Escalon. It's a lovely house. And the one thing that's not falling apart in that house right now is the masonry wall that is behind my house. So just a point that, just in jest. And then I did want to make the announcement that I will not be here on the 21st. So have fun at that meeting there. And so since I won't be there, please make sure you're out and joining us for our Park Feet celebration the following weekend out there in the park to celebrate Escalon. So I hope to see you guys there.
All right, hopefully you had a good 4th with your family, and look forward to hopefully seeing you at Park Feet coming up. As far as the police are concerned, everyone up here cares about the police. There's no ill will or anything that we're trying to do that would be nefarious. So like Councilman Stroman said, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Other than that, have a good rest of your evening. And Mr. Castellanos, I know you haven't left, but welcome back. And that's it.